Welcome to the Shifting with Marley podcast. I'm Marley. Thank you for joining me wherever you are. All that I ask of you, the listener, is to have an open mind and an open heart. And in return, I offer you myself. Today, we are going to journey into ourselves and into the mind. We're going to bring awareness to our beliefs, habits, fears, and patterns, foundations that shape our lives and our realities. We're going to talk about how from this place of deeper self-awareness, we can align with our true essence, who we are at our core, our souls. We're going to talk about creating new realities and breaking old cycles. From there, anything is possible. As we create new inner worlds, we create new outer worlds, and a new world is born. Here to guide our journey of discovery today is Melanie Jones. Melanie is a hypnotherapist and mindset and accountability coach. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you. So glad to be here with you.
Thank you for being here and sharing your passion and knowledge with us. Before we get started, can you let people know where to find you and connect with you?
Yes, so I'm on Instagram at XO, like hugs and kisses, XO Melanie Jones. That's MELANIE JONES. And that is also my website. If you're interested in learning more about hypnotherapy or booking a clarity call, I offer free discussions to chat about what hypnotherapy is and what it can do for you. And that's at my website, xomelanijones.com.
Awesome. I'd like to jump right into the mind, Melanie. It's my understanding that during hypnotherapy, you access the subconscious mind. So, what is the subconscious mind?
So, your subconscious mind, you have your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And your conscious mind thinks that it's in control and running the show, but actually it's your subconscious mind. And some people look at it as your conscious mind is your thinking mind, but your subconscious is your knowing. Your subconscious is running so much of your life. And if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's a great person to follow. He says that about 95% of our life by the time we get to our 30s is running on a set of memorized beliefs and patterns and reactions and habits. And we're not so aware of it, but basically so much of our life has been embedded into our subconscious, so much of our daily habits. And a good way of looking at it is that things that when you're a child, you had to consciously think about and learn. So for instance, tying your shoes. At one point, you had to consciously think about, how do I tie my shoes? Where do these go? What do I do with my fingers? And then eventually it was embedded in your subconscious. You no longer have to think about it. Your mind just knows how to effortlessly help you to get through your day. So it sends things to the subconscious part. And that happens just one by one throughout your life. When you're learning how to walk, at one point, you got to really think about, where do I put my foot? Writing your name. That's a big one because you have so many things you have to think about. You have to think about, how do I hold this pencil? What are the letters in my name? How do I create these letters when I write them? How do I make it a little bit neater? We have to think about so much on a conscious level. And our bodies and minds, in their, magnificent way of helping us get through our days, they embed those things in our subconscious. So we no longer have to think about them. The subconscious just runs that kind of autopilot programming in the background. So we can go about our days and we don't have to stop and think, well, how do I use a computer? What letters do I put? We've embedded these things in our subconscious, and now we go about our life. And usually it makes our life so much easier. That's the purpose of it. The problem is when we've embedded negative things in our subconscious and negative beliefs and negative habits, and then they're also stuck there. So if you think about now, if someone were to teach you to tie your shoes in a new, different way, you probably get frustrated and be like, no, I'm going to stick to the way that I know. And in the same way, we see people with bad habits and bad patterns and harmful beliefs, and they're trying to change it. And it's so hard because it's become embedded in the subconscious. So the subconscious its purpose is just to sort of hold that like a storage for all your memories, your thoughts, your beliefs, everything that's happened in your life is stored on your subconscious. And we don't think about it too much, but it's actually running so much of our lives. So it's important to become aware of it.
And when do we interact with our own subconscious mind without even realizing it?
So you're always interacting with your subconscious when you're, sometimes we especially don't realize it, when you have those split second reactions, when you have that you don't think about, you just do. It's your subconscious that's running that. In the same way that it's the part of your mind that runs your heartbeat and your breathing, you don't have to think about it. It's the part of your mind that's just running the, controls in the background. So you don't ever think about when you're using your subconscious. Now, sometimes you'll hear it when you hear like your inner self critic, that's hearing the voice of your subconscious, but it's always back there. Anything that you do that you don't think about doing, your subconscious is controlling.
Wow. Okay. And do we access the subconscious mind in meditation?
Yes. So in meditation, you can access the subconscious, and in hypnosis, you can access it. So basically, throughout most of our day, we're in the beta brainwave state. And that's kind of up here. It's when you're just going about your day, you're active, have a million things going on. That's when you're in beta. When you're getting into meditation, you go down into alpha. And if you're familiar with the brainwave states, delta is when you're asleep. So in hypnosis, you're in theta, which is in between alpha and delta. But when you can get into that brainwave state of low alpha, which is meditation, or theta, which is a little bit deeper level, but not quite sleep yet, then you can access your subconscious. Your conscious mind starts to let its guard down. And that's why you're not focusing, your conscious mind has a million things going on. But when you can get down into that relaxed state and access your subconscious, you can focus more on one particular thing.
Hmm. And I'm really curious, Melanie. I talk about the ego a lot on this podcast. So I'm curious, what's the difference between the ego mind and the subconscious mind? Where does the ego come into play in all of that?
So the ego can be described as the voice of the subconscious. So they're pretty much the same thing. The ego is the one telling you these things that have been embedded in the subconscious. So those beliefs, and they're both serve the same purpose of trying to protect you, but they're usually doing it in a way that's harmful. And that goes back to our early caveman days, when we had to be very cautious and we had to be fearful to survive. We had to be afraid of rejection back then, because if we were rejected from our tribe, we were alone, and it's hard to defend ourselves and hard to hunt and gather on your own. So you had to develop that fear of rejection. You had to develop that fear of the unknown, because if you go into an unknown cave, there might be a tiger to kill you, or if you approach that unknown tribe, they might not be friendly. So we developed these fears, and they were embedded in our subconscious, and our ego and our subconscious work to kind of perpetuate that, to keep us stuck and to keep us small, with the goal of helping us to survive. But we know that, we want to thrive and we want to expand beyond those fears. And so that's when you have to kind of learn to work with your subconscious and overcome that ego mind.
Wow. So the ego and the subconscious are intimately connected.
Yes, definitely.
So, Melanie, I know that each of our harmful beliefs or limiting beliefs, as I'll call them from here on out, are connected to the subconscious, right? You said they're stored there. There are habits, there are patterns that we don't even think about and we just do over and over and over again. So, can you tell us a little bit about limiting beliefs and how they affect us and hold us back?
Yeah. So at the core of it, we're all born feeling full of potential, feeling pure joy. That's our natural state. We're not worried about the label on our diapers. We're not worried about our weight when we're born. We're not worried about what our hair looks like. But over time, we pick up these ideas and we pick up these beliefs about who we're supposed to be, who we can be. We pick up these beliefs and then we embed them, and then it directs how we live our lives. So, like I said, at one point, we're not concerned about those things. but those ideas start to get into our frame of reference, and we live from thinking, this is what I deserve. This is what I don't deserve. This is what I'm capable of achieving. And so we hold ourselves back with those limiting beliefs. And I always tell people, like, we have to have this self compassion. We can't beat ourselves up because we're not going to be able to ascend or get to the next level or really fully enjoy our lives as long as we're beating ourselves up. So we have to have compassion for those parts, even those limiting beliefs and those doubts and those fears. Let's have compassion for them and say, like, I know you were trying to help me and you were trying to do your job the best way you knew you could, but this is harming me. And so I have to release you or transform you, because we have to get past those limiting beliefs. Another way of looking at it, there's a great book called The Big Leap. Have you heard of that book?
I haven't.
So it's a really good book, and he introduces the idea of a thermostat, and we have this upper limit, and it's programmed in childhood. So we have a limit for how much success we will let ourselves enjoy, how much happiness we'll let ourselves enjoy, how much positivity in a relationship we'll allow ourselves to enjoy. And when we start to reach that upper limit, which is our limiting belief, our subconscious gets worried of, hey, this is stepping into the unknown, the unfamiliar. Let's stay where we're comfortable. And that's, lower down. Let's stay down here where we're comfortable and where we're safe. But we want to be able to break those limits. If we want to enjoy success and happiness and abundance and fulfillment that we were not programmed to believe that we were worthy of or that we deserve, we've got to break through those limits. And we need to identify them, find out where they came from in the first place, so that then we can fully release them and not have them serve as triggers. A lot of times those limiting beliefs, you might be able to get rid of it in one area of your life, but then it'll pop up in another area. And it's kind of like that saying, like, you've got to learn the lesson. You got to get the wisdom that you needed to gain from it. You can't just ignore it or neglect it or repress it. You've got to figure it out, what you were meant to learn from this experience, so you can move forward.
Yes, absolutely. And can you give us a couple examples of common limiting beliefs you see in people you work with?
Yeah, so a very common one revolves around money. People have different beliefs about how much money they deserve. And again, it's not on a conscious level. On a conscious level, I can sit here and say, I deserve to be a billionaire. I want $1 billion right now.
Yeah.
But if deep down I don't believe that I'm worthy of receiving $1 billion, then my subconscious is going to make an effort to keep me where I believe I should be. So there's that self-concept we have. And it's sort of like, I like to describe it as a hypothesis that we make about ourselves. And in science class in school, and you make a hypothesis, and then you work to confirm your hypothesis. So that is what our minds are doing. We've made a hypothesis about, I'm never going to be rich. I'm always going to be broke. We've made this subconscious hypothesis about, I always date cheaters. We make that hypothesis, and that becomes what we believe. And so then we seek to confirm that belief. So for instance, with the money mindset belief, as long as I don't believe that I deserve abundance, then I'm going to close myself off to opportunities. On a subconscious level, I might not even be aware that I'm doing it, but I'm going to close myself off to opportunities. I'm going to procrastinate, because let's say that I were to complete that project, maybe it would mean financial abundance. And there's a part of me that's afraid of that. So I'm going to procrastinate. I'm going to, you see those lottery winners who they win so much money, and soon, before long, they've blown all the money. Why? Because on a deep inner level, they don't believe they're worthy of it. They didn't work for it, and they don't believe they deserve it. So they blow all that money. There's so much that are at play with our subconscious. And like you said, we're typically not aware of it. That's its whole job, is to keep itself just running in the background. You're unaware of it, just like with the ego mind. This is just who you are. These are just your thoughts. But really, it's running the show and trying to keep you small and keep you limited. So money blocks are big limiting beliefs that I see. I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs, and they know that they want to get to the next level, and they know that they're sabotaging themselves and they are the only things holding themselves back. So we look at where did that limiting belief come from? Did you pick it up from a parent? Is it something that you believe, especially as women? Sometimes we don't believe, on some level, we don't believe that we're meant to be financially successful because we don't have as many role models for it. Or we see those role models and we think, oh, that's a one-off, like Oprah being so successful. Well, that's just a one-off. Like, I'm not like that. That's just a very big limiting belief. There's also a lot of limiting beliefs in relationships. A lot of people have limiting beliefs around what they deserve in relationships. They've picked up ideas from their culture about what a relationship looks like, a man's role, a woman's role. They've picked up ideas from their parents, from so many different sources. They pick up these ideas and then they embed them. Because, like I said, when you are a child, you're just a sponge. That's why it's easy for you to learn languages. That's why it's easy for you to learn so many things. All the things you have to learn just to function in the world, it's all done in that quick time period. And then the rest of your life is programmed based off of a lot of what you learned back then. So, some common limiting beliefs: I'll never find happiness. I'm never going to find the one. And as long as you're telling yourself that story, your mind is going to take that as a direction and it's going to work to confirm it. So when you find a good guy, there's something about him, I'm just not attracted to him, right? Your subconscious is
Yes. Okay.
bad, because if your subconscious allowed you to be attracted to a good guy, then it's going to mess up your whole hypothesis that there's no good men. So your subconscious is like, no, there's something wrong with him. Let's say you get into a good relationship. Well, then you might be like, if your underlying limiting belief is that relationships are stressful, well, you might start to pick fights. You might accuse your partner of cheating, and you might search for evidence in a way that causes fights anyways, right? Like searching through their phone. Or those are some common things, because we've just, a lot of us as a culture have picked up these ideas that, relationships are hard and there's struggle involved and romance doesn't last and different things like that. So it's just about working with those beliefs and creating more positive beliefs. So we reprogram that in a way. We rewrite that idea of I'm never going to find the one to the one is out there for me and I'm open and accepting. And we start telling that story. I always tell my clients, we're going to tell a better story, because right now the story that you're telling yourself is working as a suggestion, as a direction to your subconscious. So if you're telling yourself, oh, I'm never going to lose this weight, or I'm never going to stop smoking cigarettes, or I'm never going to, be able to sustain myself as an entrepreneur. As long as you're telling yourself that story, it's going to be correct. And your mind is going to find ways to make that story correct, because there would be too much cognitive dissonance if you were to say all men are cheaters and then you find a good man. Then your mind would be like, wait, no, this is not what we were programmed to believe. Like, we got to get back to our programming, right?
Melanie, I love that. Let's tell ourselves a better story. I'm learning so much today. Thank you so much for being here, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you.
limiting beliefs, it seems, can really be a big, big block in reaching our full potential and cloud us from accessing our soul and our core joy that we're all meant to experience. So, if we are able to bring more awareness to each of our own limiting beliefs and then work on moving through them and releasing them and reprogramming them, it can really be powerful and transformative.
Yes, definitely. It's like I said, for myself, I struggled with anxiety. I had settled for, this is just going to be my life. I'm just going to manage this anxiety. And it was, it's sad. I look back at it. And that's another reason why I'm so passionate about hypnotherapy now, because I know personally, I look back at myself and the struggles that I went through because I was so attached to that anxiety. I had so many limiting beliefs about what I deserved out of life, and I just accepted them. And when I look at it now and how I've been able to break through those and finally identify and release those and replace those, my life is so much more peaceful and so much more abundant in every way that I just can't believe like I suffered for so long and I struggled for so long because of my own beliefs. And that's when I hear about like self sabotage, that is the saddest thing to me because I'm like, why are we our own worst enemies? That's the worst thing, right? We are our biggest critics, we're our own worst enemies, and we should be like our biggest cheerleaders and our biggest supporters and so compassionate with ourselves so that we can, as long as we're feeling bad about ourselves, I believe in vibrations and we're as long as we're feeling bad about ourselves, the guilt, the shame, the negativity, because sometimes even when we're feeling anxiety or sadness or irritability, any of those negative emotions we're feeling, we layer on top of them guilt about feeling those emotions. So we feel guilty about feeling anxiety, or we feel, shame about feeling sadness. And so we've layered on these negative emotions and we're just bringing our vibrations down so low that it's even harder. We're making it harder for ourselves to access our next level and to achieve our goals because we're down in that negative vibrational state. When we can start having compassion for ourselves, it's so much easier for us to release the anxiety and the sadness and the irritability and all of those bad habits and bad negative patterns that we have. Then we can release those a lot more easily and start vibrating higher.
Yes, I love it. And as we vibrate higher and as we transform ourselves, we transform the world.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite poems. Are you familiar with Marianne Williamson, Our Deepest Fear?
Yes, I love her. Yes.
Yes. And I've loved that poem for so long. And now I really focus on the part as we shine our lights, we give others permission to shine theirs. And it's just, it's a beautiful thing to be able to do and to offer the world. Now that we're being liberated, we can help liberate others.
Yes, yes. And that's part of your purpose, I know. And I support you. And thank you for doing what you do. And thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So, Melanie, how does hypnotherapy, which is your area of expertise, access the subconscious mind? And I have a question. Is hypnotherapy similar to a deep guided meditation?
So, hypnotherapy accesses the subconscious mind because you're in that deep state of relaxation. When you get down into the theta brainwave state, which is what we do, we start each session with like 15 to 20 minutes of just deep relaxation, which is similar to guided meditation. But here's where the two differ. After we get our clients deeply relaxed in hypnotherapy, then we start to do something called change work. So we will start to do the parts therapy or the affect bridge, which is a technique that takes them back to the original source of when their harmful belief or harmful behavior first originated. Or there's a million different types of techniques that we'll do, but that's an interactive part. So while our client is in hypnosis, deeply relaxed, we ask them questions, have them connect with their subconscious or have them connect with the different parts of themselves. And then they'll let us know what's coming up for them. We ask the part that's causing whatever belief or pattern or negative behavior, what its purpose is. Because like I've said, we want to be compassionate with it. And in hypnotherapy, there's a general understanding and acceptance that any behavior you're doing originated with a positive intent. So if you are biting your nails, it originated to help relax you. If you are experiencing road rage, that anger originated to protect you from another feeling. So let's get down to the source. Why are you responding with anger? Or sometimes you picked up things from your parents in this weird subconscious way of honoring them by accepting their beliefs, which are actually harmful for you. So we look at what was the root cause of this. And it's so interesting because there's a great Albert Einstein quote, and it's something along the lines of, you can't solve your problems with the same thinking you used to create them. And
I
so
love that quote.
Yeah. And so we think about it. If we could consciously solve our problems, we would have done so already. And sometimes we can consciously solve our problems, but a lot of times we get to the point where we're kind of coming against that brick wall and we're like, there's something else that's holding me back. And it's not an external thing, it's an internal thing. And so with hypnotherapy, we do the deep relaxation, which feels a lot like guided meditation. And then we start to do the change work, the connecting with ourselves, the transforming, the releasing, identifying the roots of different issues. And so it's it's a lot more powerful because it's a little bit more personal and interactive and sort of therapy focused than guided meditation.
Got it. But the during hypnotherapy, the during hypnosis, rather, the brain and the body are in a really deep, relaxed state, right?
Yes. And so you let your guard down. And that's the thing, too, from my own personal experience. Like I said, when I was meeting with a therapist, I was worried about her judging me. So I still had that wall up because I was like, I don't want to tell her the truth of what's going on in my head. Like she'll think I'm crazy. So in hypnotherapy, though, we create, and I'm really big on this with my students too, teaching them to create an environment of no judgment. Whatever is coming up for you is coming up for you for a reason. Whatever you've been through, I will respect that part of your story. Of course, it's all confidential and there's no judgment there. It's just all about how can we work to get you to the next step, to fulfilling your potential, to reaching the ideal version of yourself. And so we work with everything that comes up, but in that judgment free zone of deep relaxation, we are able to let our guards down and really uncover what's going on. And a lot of times you'll find out it's something different. For instance, I thought that my anxiety originated from one source, but turns out when I was in hypnosis and so deeply relaxed and really let my guard down and connected with myself at just that really deep level, I was able to uncover the true source of it. And then it was so much easier to transform it when I understood where it was coming from, what it was, what purpose it was trying to serve. And all of the answers are on our subconscious level. Like we always hear the answers are within you. And that's true. All of the answers that you need are within you. You have your own internal guide. It's just about being able to access that guide. And hypnotherapy helps you to ask the right questions and get into the right mindset and mind state of connecting so those answers can come up for you.
Well, it sounds really relaxing and really powerful and very intentional and like a sacred space.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's the atmosphere that I think most hypnotherapists, some hypnotherapists do work in a more of an authoritative of you will go to sleep and they'll tell you like you'll never smoke a cigarette again. Like have these commands, and that is a different kind. So if you're searching for a hypnotherapist, ask them if they do Ericksonian hypnotherapy, because that is the kind that's more interactive and more accepting, and it's a co-creating experience rather than telling you what to do or doing anything for you. Ericksonian hypnotherapists are working with you to help create a better path.
Wow. I want to ask you about trauma for a minute. Episode 12 of my podcast was focused on healing trauma. And I noticed that this topic was really resonated with a lot of people. So I think it's something people are really looking for. Can hypnotherapy help in healing trauma?
Yes, hypnotherapy is so effective in healing trauma because we have so many techniques that we can use. And one of my favorites is often the trauma that is still affecting us to this day stems from an incident in childhood. So there's trauma either from one singular event, from a series of negative events, or from just a toxic environment that can be traumatic. And one of the big things that I like to do with clients who are experiencing trauma will have them in that deep relaxation, able to really visualize a lot more clearly you have your adult self or your wiser self, your whatever part of you to come back into that scene. And so we do that a multitude of different ways. Sometimes the event was so traumatic that we have our clients visualize it but dissociated from it. So for instance, I might have you, when we were doing that induction, which is kind of the meditation part, you're going down an elevator and you're getting into a building and it's an old movie theater and you're there in the movie theater and on that screen is the traumatic event. But you're not in the movie theater, you're back in the projection booth, watching yourself in the movie theater, watching the incident on the screen. And so what that does is detach them from the experience so they're able to look at it in a more rational way. And then just depending on what the trauma was, I might have them, visualize themselves floating back into that scene and providing their younger self with any resources or advice or love or nurturing or protection, whatever they needed at that time, so that the trauma would not have affected them as negatively. Because it is about your perspective. When people are dealing with trauma, there's so many times where two people experience the same traumatic event and they walk away with different perspectives from it. So it really is about how our minds process it. The past is no longer actually hurting you. What's hurting you is how you're processing the memory of the past. The past is gone, right? It really only has the power over you that you extend to it. So with hypnotherapy, we can teach our clients how to really take their power back and to reframe or process in a new way the experience. So I think the powerful factor of it is that when you are in that deep relaxation and when you are in that theta state where you can really access those memories, because sometimes you'll come up with memories that you had forgotten. And sometimes our minds do repress memories and it's for a protective reason. And I work with whatever my clients feel comfortable with, but a lot of times they do want to get back to that incident. They do want to uncover it so that they can process it in a more healthy way. And then we reframe it and we just use whatever tools we need to use to help the client to look back and see that, yes, this happened and we can't rewrite the past, but what we can do is take our power back and rewrite how we respond to it and how we let it affect us and release the power that trauma has over us.
That sounds so helpful and healing, Melanie. You do virtual sessions, right?
I do, yes.
All right. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, virtual sessions people have questions about that, but they're actually, I have found, so I started doing hypnotherapy before all the pandemic stuff, and I have found that people prefer virtual because you're there and you're where you feel safe and you feel comfortable. And that's such a critical thing. When we're doing hypnosis, I just constantly emphasize the fact you are safe and you're in control. You're safe, you're in control. And as long as you feel safe and in control, you will allow yourself to go deeper. And when you're in your own home, you feel safer and more in control. And you don't have you're not stressed, which stress also gets you out of that state, which you might be if you're like, oh, I'm dealing with traffic and I got to find a parking space and am I going to be late for my appointment? So virtual sessions are actually, for my clients, have been preferable. They feel more comfortable. They're in their own homes and then they can take the time afterwards to process whatever came up for them, as opposed to, okay, now I got to get back in the parking lot and get back through traffic and,
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I feel the same. So Melanie, on a positive note, can you share with us an example of a success story from either your own life or one of your hypnotherapy clients?
Yeah, so I have, it's fun and it's exciting, but I have so many success stories, so many people who just experience shifts. And it's funny because I offer 4-session packages. And so often people will have like 2 or 3 sessions. They're like, I feel amazing, which was my situation too. I had 2 sessions and was like, I feel amazing. And I still do like maintenance hypnotherapy because I know that it's important, But a lot of times people are able to see shifts so much quicker. But yeah, mostly I work with a lot of people who are experiencing anxiety, and it's just become such an easy response for them. They wake up in the morning and they are anxious, and something happens in the day and they're anxious, and that anxiety just builds throughout the entire day. Finally able to get themselves to sleep, and the anxiety just starts back up the next day. And I think those type of clients are particularly close to my heart because I know what it feels like. And so those are the clients who I see really great success with, of being able to, I was never able to speak in public. And now, I just did this presentation and it was amazing and everyone loved it. And when I hear that stuff, it just gives me like goosebumps, because I feel so honored to be able to play that role in someone's life. It's such a privilege to be able to share this tool that I have. And that's why I started, training other people. And I became a trainer because I'm like, more people, this tool needs to be in the hands of more people. And when more people experience it, it's just going to keep spreading. And people are going to be able to have those breakthroughs in a way that's completely safe, effective, non-invasive. You don't have to be on medication, which I don't. If anyone chooses medication, that's great. Whatever works for them, I'm all for. But some people don't want to go down that path. And so it's so great that there's an alternate for them.
And you find, since so many people are in the world walking around anxious, you find that hypnotherapy is a really great tool for processing and dealing and overcoming that anxiety.
Yeah, it was the tool that worked for me. Like I said, I spent years seeing I guess you'd call it like a talk therapist, and never got through much. I felt sometimes like each weekly session was just me kind of in a way going in and proving that I'm still anxious. So I was looking for examples so I could go in the next week and tell her, well, here's what came up, and hoping that she would give me some good advice. And she had some great advice, but the problem was that it was on my subconscious level, and that path didn't work for me. Hypnotherapy was so effective for me, and it's been so effective for my clients. I have literally, of all the clients I've worked with, I had one who did not feel that it was successful. There was one client, and she, I feel like maybe had clinical depression, which, if you do have clinical depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, there's a few things that hypnotherapy is contraindicated for. So we don't use hypnotherapy on those issues because those are a lot deeper, and there's just different things that a more trained medical professional would need to deal with. But for the most part, when it's limiting beliefs, when it's fears, when it's self-doubt, phobias, bad habits, negative patterns, hypnotherapy can help, because it can help you to locate the roots of it. And when you pull up the roots, then you're able to finally get it out of your system. I tell a lot of people, like, you could spend, let's say you have your front yard and you have weeds in your yard. You could spend every day of your life mowing that yard and watering it and keeping it looking really pretty. But until you get down to the roots, you're never going to actually have a healthy yard. It's going to look really nice because you're taking care of it and doing, like self-care, which is great. And you're doing all these things and you're taking care of your yard. But really, you need to dig up the roots, and it might be a little bit messy while you're pulling up those roots, but then you get those weeds out and actually have a healthy yard. And it's just a really great analogy for what we do with hypnotherapy. And there's so many great things. And I never want to come across as if I'm judging other ways, but really just the main emphasis that you have to get to the roots. If you really want lasting change, you've got to dig up those roots.
Yes. And my final question for you, Melanie, are there any tips or tools or practices or exercises that you can recommend for us today, besides doing a hypnotherapy session, of course, to help people listening bring more awareness to their own limiting beliefs and habits and patterns and fears, so that, we can start with that awareness tool?
Yeah, so a big one, when you find that you're doing any of the self-sabotaging habits, for instance, procrastinating or doubting yourself, when you find yourself in a position where you are, let's use the example of procrastinating, Stop yourself and really focus on that awareness and say, why am I doing this? And that's something I still do regularly when I know that I've got a big project I need to complete or something, that I need to do for my course, for example. And I'm all of a sudden rearranging my closet. I stop myself. Why am I doing this right now? What am I afraid of? So when you start procrastinating, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And that is going to just help you build that awareness and understanding. And then you can have that compassion with yourself. Okay, I'm doing this. Or any negative pattern that you see yourself in, if you're overeating, if you're drinking excessively, if you are whatever the pattern is that you find yourself repeating that is harmful, next time it happens, stop yourself and just bring full awareness to what's going on inside your body. Why am I doing this? What am I really searching for? What am I afraid of? What am I trying to prevent? And the more awareness you can bring to it, the more you can start to release it.
So that internal self-reflection can really
Yeah.
help with that awareness piece.
Yeah. And then another great exercise that I would love to leave with you and your listeners is something called anchoring. Are you familiar with anchoring?
I don't think so.
So it's a really easy tool, and it's something that I teach all of my clients, and it's something that you can do anywhere. So basically, you will allow yourself to relax, take a few deep breaths, and you will visualize yourself in your preferred emotional state. So let's say you want to feel, rather than people saying, like, I don't want to feel anxious anymore. Well, what is the opposite of that for you? For some people, it's calm. For some people, it's confident. For some people, it's joyful. Whatever the opposite feeling, your ideal feeling, visualize yourself having that. So let's go with confidence. Visualize yourself fully confident. Perhaps an incident from your past where you were very confident, or just imagine an incident in your future where you will be very confident. Allow that feeling to spread. Notice where, when you're imagining having that confidence, notice where do you feel it? Do you feel it first in your chest? Do you feel it in your throat, maybe? Do you feel it in your cheeks? Wherever you feel that feeling. And that's about really getting that awareness and really getting in touch. So when you're deeply relaxed, feel where is that feeling originating, and then allow it to spread, and allow that feeling, that, like in this example, confidence, to spread through your entire body, through your entire mind, and then pick an anchor. So for myself, I squeeze my thumb and my finger together. And when that feeling is getting to its max, you squeeze your anchor together. And some people might be tapping their knuckle, whatever it is. This is a really easy, inconspicuous one. You'll squeeze it together and you'll anchor that feeling in, and then you just release it as the feeling starts to subside. And what you want to do is practice that. Practice it often. Practice visualizing yourself as confident and anchoring that feeling in. And then when you're in a situation where you need to access that confidence, squeeze your fingers together again, and you will feel it washing over you, because your mind gets trained to, sort of like Pavlov's dog, where they would ring a bell when the food was coming, ring a bell when the food was coming. And then eventually when they rang the bell, the dogs were still salivating because they assumed the bell ringing was food coming. And so with anchoring, we're training our mind to visualize yourself as confident, visualize yourself as confident. And every time you squeeze your finger and your thumb together, you're feeling that confidence. And so next time when you need to feel that confidence, squeeze your finger and thumb together, and it's going to come back to you. It's the law of association. So that is a great, easy tool that anyone can use. You don't have to be in hypnosis to use it. You can practice it and build up on it. And it's easy, free, fun. I highly encourage that.
Thank you, Melanie. That's a really great tip. So to everyone listening, it's time. It's time to go deeper into our minds. It's time to release the blocks that are holding us back. It's time to align with our true selves and allow more flow and space and healing into our lives. It's time to focus on our inner world, and in doing so, heal the outer world. As we heal and reach our highest potential, we automatically heal the world around us. Heal ourselves, heal the world. It's time to consciously create a new earth by making conscious decisions, forming new habits, and breaking old cycles. The new earth is being birthed through each of us right now as we show up, as we heal, as we overcome our fears and limiting beliefs, as we welcome new ways of being. So ask yourself, are you willing? Are you ready?